Hello you wonderful people, I'm Amy or AWayfaringFrog and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. Today we're going to continue with the pastel townhouses, which I started quite a while ago now, and we are on to the second unit, which is the pastel blue unit. So as you can see, I'm starting in the kitchen here, and I just didn't really like the gold accents on the Home Chef Hustle countertops, so I ended up opting for these ones from Dream Home Decorator instead. I was kind of keen to try and keep each of the units basically the same as one another because it seemed unrealistic to have a totally different layout when they're basically cookie cutter houses in my mind. So I thought that these were similar enough, and hopefully it still has the same kind of vibe. They are very modern as well. And ever since Home Chef Hustle came out, I haven't actually used the Dream Home Decorator counters that much, so it was kind of nice to bring them back here. And I did end up doing a living room in this space rather than a dining room like in the yellow build. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen the yellow build, be sure to have a look at that. I'll link it at the end of the video. I'll also provide the link in the description down below, and I'll also go back to the yellow build and do the same for that so you can see the blue build here. Don't mind my tool mod either. I think when I built this, or when I started decorating it at least, the tool mod still hadn't been updated, or I hadn't updated it, sorry. So the UI interface looks a little bit weird, but it does still function perfectly fine, as you can see. So I just sized up this TV, which is from that cozy event that happened around wintertime in the Northern Hemisphere, summertime I suppose, in the Southern Hemisphere. And I just love this frame TV. So it is actually functional as a TV, and it's technically a base game item, so even if you didn't unlock it during that period, I believe you should still be able to download this build and that should be in your game. I'm not certain on that. That's what I've always thought, but I keep hearing different things lately, so don't quote me on it. But hopefully you should still be able to access it this way. It's kind of a shame if not. I always feel a bit sad about whenever they do limited time items, just because not everyone can afford to pre-order or purchase a new pack early to get the early reward content. And it just seems such a shame to basically stop people from being able to access those items in the future just because they couldn't buy that pack then. Or maybe they don't even play The Sims at the time that pack came out, and now those items are just kind of blocked off forever. It feels really such a shame that they've done that. I do get why from a business point of view, but it would be nice if it was a bit more inclusive so that, I don't know, if there was another way that people could get those early purchase rewards a bit later down the line, that would be much better, I think. But let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments down below. Do you like the exclusivity if you do purchase the expansion packs early, or when you do the events? Do you kind of prefer that only you have them? No wrong answers, don't worry, I'm not going to judge you if you like the exclusivity. I can kind of see that desire as well. I just personally would prefer it if they were available to everyone, to be honest. Also, I only really got into buying packs kind of as they came out because I just love building so much when Cottage Living came out, and I think that was the first one where they ever did an early purchase reward. So I kind of almost missed out on those ones as well, and I'd have been gutted if I discovered that later down the line. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of that. But anyway, enough babbling. As you can see, we've decorated the kitchen a lot here. I used a lot of the items from the little Simsy pack, the Comfy Gamer kit. I thought the books just helped bring in that pastel blue that I'm trying to spread throughout really well. And then the little bread box was from Parenthood. And then switching over to the living room, I sort of dot around a few places. I ended up using this little bay window area just to display a statue, which is from the Artist Studio kit. And if I hadn't mentioned, I think I mentioned this in the yellow build, but not in this one yet, I wanted to make this townhouse for an artist. I do also end up adding a little photography space, just more of an office rather than using any of the big photography equipment. But I thought it would be nice to kind of try and make this a very creative space, but primarily around pictures, both painting and then photographs. So that was the inspiration for how I was decorating this one. And as a result, I felt like the eco lifestyle vibe fit really well. So I went through and tried to make a lot of things look almost handmade in a way. So hopefully you can see that vision in how I'm decorating. But I am using the little cubby hole from the Comfy Gamer kit again. I just love this item so much. I think it's so good. And I have 3 Kallax shelves in my office. I did do a short on how I decorated my office recently if you wanted to check that out as well. But I love the IKEA Kallax shelves. I think they're fantastic. They're so good for storage and they just look really cool. So I enjoy them. And the fact that they're freestanding as well. That was the main reason I bought my first ever one when I went to university, because then I could take it with me into my rented accommodation and not worry about having to screw it into the wall because it can stand by itself. But I am dotting in a few of the artist items here from that artist studio kit. I really like this little step ladder shelf. I think it's so cute. And thankfully it's quite a versatile item, even if you wanted to use it in a house that's not for an artist. So I really do like that one. I genuinely feel like the kits have just been getting better and better, partly because they've been collaborating with CC creators. I don't think the Artist Studio one was a collaboration though, and it's just so good. So it really goes to show, I think, how the Sims team have been listening to Sims players. But now that the living space is predominantly complete, I'm just popping into the entryway here. And as before with the yellow house, if you haven't seen the overall build of these townhouses, the way you get to the front door is actually by going up an entire floor. So there's a big stairway outside that your Sims can walk up to the top floor. And then I guess the first or ground floor, whichever you prefer to call it, that is kind of like a basement, but it's not a basement in The Sims. So for this particular house, that ends up being the artist's studio area, which I thought was a lot of fun. And you can also access the back garden from there. So we'll pop down there shortly. But we are now downstairs on the ground or first floor, whichever you prefer to call it. And you might have noticed that I put a very yellow room in originally, and that's just because I grabbed the bathroom from the yellow house that I built and just popped that down, because again, I wanted the same layout and the same kind of fixtures. So that was just a bit of an easier way to achieve that. And then I updated the color scheme and just changed a few things here and there to make it a little bit more different. But now we are into the fun part, or at least I think so, with pulling out all of the different artist studio kit items that I wanted to use. There's so many fun ones in here, and I tried to use pretty much every item from that kit. So I'm sorry if you don't have the kit. I think it is a really good one to grab though, so I would recommend it. I did also use the wallpaper for the first time ever. I just felt like it kind of suited the space. And then I added this other blue wooden wall around a few other spaces so it doesn't look totally grey. If you are enjoying the video, by the way, please be sure to hit that like button. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a video. I've still got the pink townhouse and the green townhouse to do on this lot, so if you've got any ideas for kind of themes to go for, I was thinking of perhaps a gardener for the green one because that just feels too perfect not to, and because it's also on the edge of the lot, that means it's got a bigger garden. And then for the pink one, I was a little bit undecided. I was thinking maybe a bigger family could live there because so far I've only done 2 bedrooms for each of the houses, despite there being capacity for 3 bedrooms. So that might be a bit interesting. And then I was perhaps thinking maybe like the teenager could be a streamer and I could use a lot of the Comfy Gamer kit, which again is probably one of my favorite kits if you hadn't noticed. So be sure to let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But now the studio space is coming together quite well. I did cut a few little decision-making parts out because the process was a bit long-winded. I was just really unsure on where to put all of these big items, and I knew I wanted to include as many as possible. So I did end up settling for this, where I had the desk butting up to the new woodworking bench, which is one of my favorite items from this kit, just because the base game one we've had for so long and it just doesn't fit into so many builds because it's so rustic. So it's really nice to have a more modern styled one. I did also pick the more dirty looking swatch for all of the items from the Artist Studio kit, just because I like the idea of it being a little bit messy. It felt kind of realistic because if you've ever done any kind of painting before, it gets everywhere. I actually did some painting recently. I was painting coasters with some family members, and despite just painting some coasters, I still managed to get covered in the paint. Maybe it's just me being messy, but I feel like that happens to a lot of people, so hopefully it's not just me, but I am also very clumsy, so it could just be me. Anyway, we have pretty much finished decorating the artist studio area. I did also include that base game item, which is the canvas shelf. So that is from base game. I think it's a career unlockable though, so you usually have to work in one of the artist careers in order to be able to access it. But thankfully cheats exist, so you can just cheat that item into your game if you'd prefer. And now I'm into the office, which I ended up making for a photographer. So there isn't really space for like a backdrop or something for the photographer to take pictures of. So if you wanted to use the career from the Machino pack, or Moschino, I forget how you pronounce that, then you might need to still go somewhere else or find another place to add that in. This was more of like I figured more of a nature photographer or something than fashion photographer. So I wasn't too worried about adding in those big backdrop items. But again, I really wanted to use the Comfy Gamer kit because it has such great pastel colours, so I did go ahead and include a lot of that in here. The little cupboardy item is from the Artist Studio kit. I couldn't find a place for it in the main studio room, and I thought it looked like a nice storage space in here, despite the fact that it has some rolls of paper on the bottom. I suppose it could be jointly shared by the 2 Sims or 3 Sims who live here who might want to store their artwork in some places. I did also really try to make the layout of this room different to the one from the yellow house. So I did a crafter's room in that one, and I just didn't want to have the desk in the same place just to help mix it up a bit. I did struggle for a while at first though due to that, but I think it came out well in the end, so hopefully you agree. I did also include a few items from that Moschino pack, so like this little shelf with a lot of photographer's equipment hanging off it is from there. I thought that was just quite a nice item, and if you don't have that kit or stuff pack, it does mean that the little stand that the camera is on and then that shelf, you wouldn't have those unfortunately, but you could potentially always replace those if you did want to download this build at all and you don't have that stuff pack, because I think that's the only couple of things that I used from the Moschino stuff. This build isn't on the library yet or the Sims 4 gallery yet, just because it's going to be townhouses, so I was planning to finish all of them and then upload it. So I will be sure to probably drop a message on my channel when that happens, and I'll then go back and update the descriptions of each of the videos once they're all complete and I sort of know the value of each of the ones. There is a bug at the moment. I haven't really done any gameplay in The Sims 4 for quite a while since I've been moving house, so when I have played The Sims it is pretty much just building, but it sounds really game breaking, so I will make sure to upload just a normal residential version of this as well to the gallery when I do it, because honestly, I think avoiding rental residentials is probably a good idea at the moment, which is worrying me for the new expansion pack that got announced as of recording this voiceover, since that one was like kind of having your own little business and being able to have a business on your own residential lot as well. So it kind of uses the same function as the rental residentials, which I love. I think this new expansion pack sounds amazing, but I am so worried about the bugs for it. So hopefully it's not so bad. But we are now decorating the garden, or I've pretty much finished decorating it at this point. Because it's a lot smaller, I did include just sort of the bare minimum items, and then these little slats, which I think are from City Living. There's a couple in the game, but these ones are freestanding rather than attaching to a wall. I just thought it added a nice little extra feature to that space and help differentiate it from the yellow house. So I'm going to try and continue to make each of those little awning areas a little bit different for each of the houses. But we are now decorating the final floor of the house, and again I just copied over the bathroom from the yellow house into this one and have started updating a few of the items within it, so again it looks a little bit different. I figured that in this house as well more of a teenager would live here rather than a child, so I did remove all of the like little kiddie decals that I had put on the walls in the yellow house. I did think they were really cute and still kind of matched the pastel blue, but I'm just trying to do something a little bit different. I don't want all of the houses to be the same, so had to make a few sacrifices here and there. But now the hallway is fairly minimal. I just add in a few little pieces of furniture. Due to the number of doors and how small the space is anyway, not a lot can fit here. So I think that's quite realistic. I don't really put much in my own hallway, to be honest. in terms of furniture pieces because there's just no room. Also, this wallpaper that I've been using throughout all of the house, I also used it in the yellow house. It's the one from For Rent. I think it's so nice. I didn't really realize how versatile it was. I haven't built that much in the For Rent world. In fact, I don't think I've built in that one at all. So I hadn't really looked at a lot of the build buy or a lot of the build assets, mostly just the buy stuff. But I think this wallpaper is so nice and it's got some really lovely pastel colors. And I think it just helps add that little bit of color without overwhelming it. Like if you just painted all of the walls with sort of floor to ceiling paint in blue, I think that would maybe look a little bit too much. So I did like how much more sort of subtle this one was as a result. We are now in the master bedroom though, and in keeping with the idea of this sim or the Sims living here being quite crafty, I did end up going for a lot of the eco lifestyle furniture. Whilst I don't think they're going to be fabricators, there is no space for a fabrication machine or anything, which is how you make a lot of the furniture in eco lifestyle. It just felt like the right kind of vibe for these Sims, so I did enjoy using the assets from that pack. And again, I brought in this pegboard from the Comfy Gamer kit. I just think it's really nice, and I love how big the shelves are, so there's more slots on them. I don't usually like custom placing items on shelves in the game if they can't slot to it, just because then when you put the walls down, the items are just floating in the air and they kind of get in the way of gameplay and feel a little bit weird. So I tried to use the slots rather than not using them. I did also end up using the TV from the Bella Goth pack. I forgot what it's called now. Secret Sanctuary maybe. I thought the color of it worked really well, and even though it's quite ornate, I just thought it was a fun piece. Like maybe they'd got the frame at a thrift store and then kind of attached that to their frame TV or something. So again, it is a functional TV in the game. It just looks like a picture when it's off, which is so nice. I really like being able to have those. I kind of wish I had one in real life, but I think they're really expensive both to buy and then to run. I imagine them just being on all the time isn't great for the bills. So probably just be avoiding that, to be honest. But we are now cluttering up those shelves that I mentioned. I did size a few objects down just to get them to fit in together without too much clipping. And I just had a little bit of fun adding random little bits of clutter here, including these sculptures of like a little city model and then the taxi and train from the Growing Together expansion pack. Again, they just came in the really nice blue colours that I wanted, and I wasn't sure what else to put up there, so I thought they'd be a little bit of fun. I actually started decorating this before I moved house, and then I finished it the other day. So I now also have access at this point in decorating to the new items from the latest event, which is like that Blast from the Past event or something like that. So I did add like a little alarm clock, which came from that, as well as a few other items. Including this little armchair, which you might recognize if you played The Sims 1. I was an avid player of that one. I think I played The Sims 1 to death. I loved it so much. And so I really wanted to include that little armchair in here. And so as I mentioned earlier, the space is more for a teenager is what I had in mind. I did really struggle with the layout for some reason. So again, I ended up cutting a lot of that out because it was just me moving stuff around and then putting it back to where it was. But I think it ended up really looking really nice in the end. I went with a lot of the sort of IKEA-esque furniture, so the furniture that comes from the university expansion pack, because it just felt, again, to fit in with the vibe of sort of the eco-lifestyle-esque building your own furniture kind of style. And then this pale wood swatch just worked really nicely with the base game bed that I picked out. And speaking of base game, I keep meaning to do a base game only build, so I will hopefully be getting around to that soon. But for now, that is the end of the speed build portion of this video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a video. Be sure to let me know any ideas you've got for the remaining 2 townhouses, but for now I'll leave you with the screenshots. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye for now!